Hey folks, my name is Kevin and it's time for a little bit more knife nerdery, and I am very excited to get to show you this today because this is the Qvist Bladeworks variant PE2 prototype, and that is a lot of words, so what does any of that mean? Qvist Bladeworks, that's how you spell it, Q-V-I-S-T. Qvist Bladeworks is the brand name for Jacob Lundquist's knives. Jacob Lundquist is a guy in Minneapolis who's just making knives in his basement. He makes customs in his basement. How freaking cool is that? The variant is this design here that is a swayback with a Wharncliffe blade, and it is just a very delightful EDC knife. The PE is the production edition made by QSP. And the PE2 is this here second version, and this is one of only 4 prototypes of this right now. So huge thank you to Jacob for letting me check this out. Also huge thank you to Kevin, aka Left EDC. He's the one that's kind of helping organize this pass around, and he's also the one who sent it directly to me. So shout out to him, go check out his channel. He always sends a bunch of stickers along the way, so of course he did, but this was also my first chance getting to see this really cool hollow sticker of the Devo Knives Stout. That's Kevin's knife with Colin. So that was really fun to see. I also got to check out all of these cool stickers that came with this. This is some artwork I've seen before, but this is Jacob's new like really organic version of his logo. It's just a very fun thing. Okay, so there's 4 primary differences between the PE and the PE2, and that's going to be around the lock bar, the opening mechanism, the blade finish, and the handle material. And we're going to be primarily focusing on those 4 differences in this video. If you want general information about this knife, I have an unboxing of the PE and a full, long, very nerdy, small details review comparing the PE to the custom version that he also makes. So let's talk about this lock bar. One of the things that people complained about with the PE is that it wasn't the easiest knife ever to to push over this lock bar. And I said in both of my videos that I personally don't have any difficulty with it, but I acknowledge that it's not the most comfortable ever. And it's because this front handle scale is not recessed at all compared to the back one. So the only thing that allows you to push over on it is the fact that it sits up slightly proud. There's not a huge gap in here, and so it's hard to kind of push on the side of it, and you end up pushing it over by just kind of dragging traction along the top. I think I personally had no trouble with it, but a lot of people did, and so it's really nice to see that he extended over here. He extended it up just slightly. It's 1/32 of an inch, which is only that much. It doesn't look like a whole lot, but it's enough to make it so that you can now push on the side of this. And so I personally find it definitely easier to get to the side and push laterally on that. It's a really nice improvement to see, and it also brings it closer to the way that the custom is. But how did he do that? Because one of the things that he said and that these scales are interchangeable between the 2 versions. And since these are nested liners, how did he find additional room there but still keep this in a way that would fit for both? And if you look over here, there used to be a slightly larger gap. So there is this gap right here. And it's not like it's a huge gap, but there's a gap right there and a gap right there. And then the lock bar itself is perfectly straight. If you look over on this side, you can see that when we close it, that gap is still there, but it's much smaller. It's about half the size. And the bigger thing then is he then has this little ramp up right here, and then a ramp back down on that side. And that allows him to make the exact same scales fit, there you can see that ramp a little bit better, on this lock bar that sticks out further. I love to see that. And another thing I want to talk about with this lock bar is on this particular knife, this lock bar strength is dramatically stronger. This is a very firm lock bar, and you compare that to over here, this is so much easier to push over. I said in the video on this one that it's significantly firmer than on some knives. This is a solid medium lock bar. It's not, some knives are really light, and this one is solid medium. This is full on hard. But I think that is just a remnant of the fact that this is a production sample, not production sample, this is a prototype, and I wouldn't expect that to be the case on the full knife. If it did come that way, if you ended up getting one of these, if this was my personal knife, I would absolutely modify that. It's not hard to do at all. You just assemble the knife and you just bend this lock bar over some. There's a lot of videos out there. I think I might have even done a video on that. I don't remember if I did yet, but it's easy to do. But this is not my knife. This is a prototype and it's a pass around, so I'm definitely not going to modify it. But even with that firmer lock bar pressure, I don't have any trouble disengaging this lock bar. It's so easy now that it extends up a little bit further. And I think it would actually be pretty hard to do that if that lock bar strength was over on this version. Now, one of the consequences, and this is something I don't want to spend too much time on because again, this is a prototype, and so I don't think this is going to be representative of it, but that increased lock bar strength means that the action on this and the closing isn't as good. Because if you look, one of the things that's so great about this knife is it takes almost no no effort to close this. But all of that, how much effort it takes to close a knife is entirely based on this lock bar strength. That's like the number one factor. And so this one having a lot stronger lock bar means that this is a lot stiffer. You have to do a lot more shaking to get it home. But again, I think that's just because this is a prototype. I wouldn't expect that to be the same on the other one. But that is going to impact our action, and we're going to talk about that now. Now, I think for most people, this is going to remain predominantly a middle finger flicking knife. Or if you're someone that likes to thumb flick whole knives, you'll do that too. But this just works so dang well as a middle finger flicker that I think most people are going to continue using it that way. But you can see on this new one, we now have a front flipper. If we look at where this ended, this used to just stop right here. And now this has been extended upward, and there's jimping that's been added on to make this work as a front flipper. Now, I said in the small details review of this that the stop pin on the PE is seated slightly further in than compared to on the custom version. And I said that that's a positive thing because what it means is that there's this little nub that sticks up, and it sits into this concave spot right here. That's a good thing because if your stop pin is hitting a concave spot, then it's distributing that impact force across a larger surface area instead of one single spot. And it just improves the longevity of the knife. Even on this version, this tiny little nub wraps up around. So by extending it upward, now this entire flipper tab wraps up around. So one of the things I love is that this is just a small iterative improvement on the knife. I love to see that. But another thing I love is that he actually said that this wasn't originally his idea. He said in a couple of different videos that he posted that a customer said, "Hey, I love your knife, but couldn't you just extend that up and make it a front flipper?" And his response is basically, yeah, wow, I wish I thought of that. So I love that kind of integrity and honesty too. And for me, when someone comes out with a new version of a knife and they add in an additional opening mechanism, that is a positive as long as it's not impacting your ability to use the other ways you would normally use the knife, and as long as that opening mechanism itself is good enough to actually be worth being there. So let's talk about this. So this is never going to be my favorite kind of front flipper, and it's because it's the kind that sits low down flush in. A lot of people like that because of how unobtrusive it is, and I think if you're going to take a design and say I want it to be effectively the same design but just have a subtle flipper tab there, that's the right way to go. I don't think he should have extended this up far and made a little pokey thing at the top, but this style of flipper tab is just never going to be the best. So if this was my only opening mechanism on the knife, then I would say this is not my favorite knife, or favorite way to knife in terms of opening action. I would rather it be something like this. A lot of people don't like when a front flipper sticks up really far because they think it looks weird or they find it jabby, but this style of flipper tab means that you can use geometry to press on the flipper tab in the direction you need to make the blade turn. You're not relying entirely on traction, you're able to push. With a flipper tab like this, you can't really push. You're mostly having to use the jimping to use traction to pull the blade out. And so your motion is upward rather than forward. This one's actually a little bit somewhere in between. So some of these you do just rely on that and you have to pull the blade out as you go. But this one, because it does actually stick up slightly in front, I can actually hook this top part here and flip that out. So I find that this flipper tab, sorry, I just hit my hand there. I find this flipper tab, wow, I'm doing it weird. I find this flipper tab works well, but not fantastically. But it's the kind of thing where you're getting it for free, so it doesn't have to be a perfect flipper tab. You get to do it if you want to do it. There's occasional times you want to do it. But the other thing here is that I think the big reason why I find this one slightly difficult to use is just because of that lock bar strength. So normally when you have a front flipper, you want that detent strength to be slightly lighter. And over here, this is a medium. This is actually maybe even a little bit on the light hand side, but the geometry of everything means that the flicking action is fantastic. Over here, this is full on firm. And that is just too much pressure. And so if you see me flubbing this, it's because this particular one just has slightly too much pressure. The other consequence of that is I find that this wraparound approach on this particular one is dang near impossible, but you can see that if I pull this out just slightly so I'm past that detent, from a pure geometry perspective, if I use this approach, I can easily get it. So if this lock bar pressure was lighter, I think everything would be perfectly fine. Now, in terms of whether or not this impacts your ability to do anything else, the one thing that it does change is it now adds jimping right here. And so previously this knife never had any jimping, and that's one thing I really loved about it. But this is good jimping. This jimping is low down, And so, I mean, sorry, it's shallow. So it's not something that hurts to press against, but it's crisp enough that it does give traction. It's not the absolute most comfortable chipping in the world, but it's also not the like least comfortable. And so what I find also is that my thumb just kind of sits right past it in most of my grips. So it's not really changing my experience with the knife. I have to kind of choke back kind of far, or in other words, maybe cant the knife forward kind of far. And this isn't the most common grip for me, but even if I do, this is actually perfectly comfortable. I like it. And so I think this really is a case where you're getting the additional opening mechanism completely for free. So now let's talk about this blade finish. So one of the things that they changed is the style of the blade. So if we come up here, all of the original PEs have this satin finish, and it's not like an especially strong satin finish. It's not something like the really strong grind lines you find on a Riot satin. And so this has never been my favorite finish. I also commented in the Small Details review of this. If you look, there's like a slight warbling quality. Can you see that? Yeah. And so it just has a slightly melted look to it. And on the one hand, this is a very, very slick finish. And so it has like very little friction as you're pushing through a knife. I mean, it's pushing through a cut. But the other thing that's nice about that is it means that finish, on a budget knife, you can always kind of expect that the handle finish is going to, I mean, the blade grind finish is going to be the same kind of finish they have elsewhere. They're not going to like mask stuff off or give you like satin flats and something else. You'll find that in higher end knives. But this very low friction surface here means that this knife is exceptionally glassy because your detent ball is rubbing against that very, very smooth finish. And so this knife is just insanely buttery smooth, like so much smoother than it has any right to be. I've never felt a budget knife that is as smooth as this knife. And again, I've only felt this particular one for the PE, so I don't know if other ones are like that. But this one at least is, oh my goodness, smooth. Now you come over here and what we have is a stonewash finish. And I personally consider this a huge upgrade. I think the other one is like an okay finish. I think this is a great finish. I think it looks beautiful. It's like a really nice lustrous one that still has a good amount of reflectivity. You can see my face right there. But it has just like a really nice even stonewash. This is good, and it's going to hide wear really well. And so I consider that a huge upgrade. The one thing I was really curious about is that thing I was just talking about, the fact that the other one was so glassy. And so I didn't know if this stonewash finish is going to impact how smooth this knife feels. But the thing is, it's really hard for me to measure this fairly because the majority of the thing that's going to make you feel any kind of grittiness or texture in closing a knife is how hard the lock bar is pressing, because that's the thing that's causing all of that friction as you go. And so the fact that this is so much stronger makes it an unfair comparison. But even with that tremendously strong lock bar pressure, this is very smooth. I'm not going to lie, it's not as incredibly buttery smooth as the other one, but this is still a tremendously smooth and consistent knife. There is absolutely no change in how much effort it takes as you go. There's no patchiness, there's no grit, there's no like parts where the balls kind of rub or catch or anything like that. This feels fantastic. I love to see that. Okay, so now let's move back to these handles. Now in the original version, everything was in G10. You could come in different colors, but it was all G10. And eventually he offered standalone versions of the scales on his website, and he started doing it in some cool materials, like even fat carbon. And so if you have those will still work because these scales are completely interchangeable. But with the new version, he has really cool scale options. This here, obviously, you've been seeing this whole time, is titanium, and that is so freaking exciting. Everyone loves titanium, and this is a really nice titanium scale. I personally got the blue denim micarta, and here's the kicker, I got a set of the titanium scales as separate. And so at the time that I'm filming this, there's still 13 pairs of those in stock right now, and those ship right now. He has those in hand. I'm going to try to get this video up as quickly as I can because the pre-order for this knife ends on Friday, May 6th. And so I want to get this up as quickly as I can. And so I don't 100% know if those will still be in stock when you see this, but maybe. And if you can, go check them out. Like I said, I got the blue denim micarta and got these as standalone so I can have both. Now, there's also a JG10 option, and so one of the things that he did is he made the scale pairings with the blade finish. So you can get this titanium scale with the stonewash finish or with a black wash finish, and then the JG10 comes in that black wash finish as well, and the blue micarta comes in the stonewash. So what I'm going to end up with is a version with the blue denim micarta that I could swap to make it look exactly like this. So these scales are really, really nice. They have a beautiful bead blast finish. It's very even. It has this like warm kind of soft luster to it. It has a very nice smooth feel to it. And all of the finishing around the corners, like they're just really nicely rounded. They feel fantastic. And it does make the knife overall not feel like a budget knife at all. This feels so much higher. Like that, honestly, this feels higher quality than your average budget knife. It just does, but this makes it feel like a totally different class of knife. The one thing I will say is that there's weight. Obviously, there's going to be weight, but yeah, there's weight. So when you get this in the G10 versions, and I think the micarta will be even lighter because I'm pretty sure micarta weighs less than G10 typically, but it depends on how it's cut. But anyway, and what kind of micarta it is. But anyway, this weighs 3.22 ounces according to my scale, and this is a 3-inch blade. And so what that puts it in is just over, but within that about an ounce an inch mark. And so this knife feels nice, sleek, light, and I think it feels like what you would expect when you pick it up in a small EDC knife. The tie scales add an extra 1.1 ounces. And so this put this at 4.32. This was 3.22, 4.32, an extra 1.1 ounces. And all of that weight is back here. And that's because you have full pieces of metal now on top, and you still have the full stainless steel liners that themselves don't have any kind of weight relief. And so on the one hand, it now feels heavier, like certainly heavier. It's not a heavy knife at 4.3 ounces. It's still not a heavy knife. And I think the size and dissipation of everything of all of this, like the spread of that weight, makes it not feel too heavy, but it does the weighting distribution in terms of the handle versus the knife now does make this one feel handle heavy. It also means that the balance point is going to be right there, whereas the balance point on this one is further forward right there. But it's not tremendously different. We're talking there to like there. In both of these, I would want the weight to be a little bit further up, right around here, and that's where it was on the custom that had the carbon fiber scales only. But anyway, the point is, if you're going to get the tie, on the one hand, it feels and looks fantastic. On the other hand, you're going to want to be someone that likes a little bit of heft for you to really feel like that's the right choice for you. Okay, so now let's talk about price. And this is one of the things that I think is crazy, and this is just amazing. So when this came out, this was $69, and these, well, the version that comes in G10 or micarta is also $69. I can't believe that you're able to get a significantly nicer blade finish and the improvements here for that exact same price. This version is $99, and I so strongly thought that he was going to come in over $100 by a meaningful amount when I heard that he had ties. So the fact that he's keeping this under 100 is crazy to me. But if you can get in while the pre-order is still going, both of those are knocked down $10 cheaper. So the G10 and micarta version is $59, and this titanium version is $89. And that just honestly blows my mind. He's pushing the value proposition so freaking hard here. This is so much knife for that money. It's absolutely crazy to me. And like I said, I was able to get the blue denim micarta and the stainless scales, and that entire set, that whole package cost me $108. What the heck? That's amazing. That is so freaking cool. So my final thoughts on this is that basically it's just upgrades. Like the finish is obviously better. Not everyone's going to love a stonewash finish, but this is a really good stonewash finish, and I think it's an obvious clear upgrade. The lock bar access is an obvious clear upgrade. The new flipper tab is obvious clear upgrade because it doesn't interfere with your ability to use the knife the way you did before, and it's just a new cool thing you can use, and it does work pretty well. So everything about this is just clearly an upgrade. And if you do end up with a handle material you like even more, because I love blue denim micarta and I love titanium, that is obviously a huge upgrade. So the fact that he was able to keep the pricing as low as he did, oh man, everything about this is just amazing. So like I said, the pre-order on this is running through May 6th. And so if you don't get in on the pre-order, if you're watching this and it's after that, they will still be available at that $10 higher retail price when they finally come in. So there will be a gap. So you can order it now, or there will be a period of time where you can't order it, and then they'll come in and he'll have them in stock and they'll ship out and you'll be able to order it then. So if you miss out on the pre-order, don't worry, you can still get one of these. The other thing is that these are for sale at pre-order right now on UrbanEDCSupply.com as well. So my personal opinion is if you can buy a knife directly from the maker, do that. Buying it directly from QvistBladeworks.com is how you're going to get Jacob the largest percentage of your money, which is, I think, the right choice to do. But if you have like points at Urban EDC Supply, or if you are planning on buying some other stuff over there anyway and you want to combine with shipping or something, by all means, buy it over there too. And if you do that, and if you want to help my channel out, I do have a referral link and I'll get a 10% commission. You could also use Lefty's referral link because he's been putting a lot of effort into organizing the pass around for this. Or anyone else you want. The thing I would say, if you do end up buying it through Urban EDC Supply, I encourage you to use someone's link because it doesn't impact you, it doesn't cost you anything more, and it just is nice to be able to give free money to someone that you like. So my end feeling about this is I'm super, super glad that I got in on the pre-order myself. I think it's going to be really freaking cool and an obvious upgrade to this. Once I get it, I'm going to sell this. I can't see a real need for having both, but I think this is still such a tremendously good budget knife that if you end up wanting one of these and finding one on secondary or something like that, I think you're going to be very, very happy with it. But like I said, everything about the PE2 is just a bit of an upgrade. So I think it's great to see that kind of improvement. I hope you guys like this. I hope you guys get on the knife, and yeah, I'll catch you guys next time.